There's little doubt that the factions in Marathon are a hugely important part of the game. As a runner, you'll interact with them in three main ways. One is the story. These factions will be the primary vehicle through which the story is told season to season. They will also act as vendors for your runner to interact with, by which I mean they will offer weapons, cores, implants and more for sale that you can buy to help improve the effectiveness of your runs. And lastly, they will each offer their own progression tree of passive buffs for your runner, things like increased stamina, increased jump height and more. You might have noticed then that each of these factions have a very distinct look, a very distinct style, and that's because they each have their own histories, their own ideologies, and their own focuses that push you through various gameplay styles. So let's look at each of the factions, what they represent, and what they'll be asking of you. And stick around to the end for a mystery 7th faction that I think we'll see open up to us sooner rather than later.
As major investors in the original Marathon expedition, Traxus seeks to recoup losses incurred by the colony's collapse. You can assist in our exploratory efforts and be discreetly compensated. Traxus accepts no legal or ethical liability for any damages you inflict or receive during the course of your contract.
So first up is Traxus. These folks are represented by this weird looking fella with a big lion, and they are effectively a huge, heavy industrial corporation. They're one of the main backers of the original Marathon project, which was the project that sent the Marathon ship out here to Tau Ceti 4 in the first place. Their roots lie on Mars. They were a huge corporation there. They created this massive AI that took over the planet and went rampant, and it caused a lot of damage. But they have a huge amount of reach, very deep pockets, and they're very keen to get you on side to do their bidding on Tau Ceti 4. The contracts or missions that you'll do for Traxus will be focused on asset extraction and extracting resources for them to take back and study. In terms of what they'll provide to you, there's not a huge amount of information on what any of the factions provide to you right now, but you can presume it's going to involve a lot of money. There's some talk on the internet that they will provide buffs to your shield capacity and things like that. Next up is Cyberacme.
I'm Oni, your onboard navigational intelligence. Your consciousness and my neural programming are inexorably interlinked. Per our arrangement, Cyberacme is here for you. I'm here for you.
May you operate at peak efficiency.
Good luck.
We don't have a huge amount of information on them as a company, though there's no doubt they're a titan of the electronics industry, and in terms of the contracts and missions that you'll take on for them, it's very sort of beginner tutorial focused stuff, exfiltration and equipment centered contracts, but they offer one of the most lucrative progression rewards through that progression tree, which is increased vault space to store all of your loot, as well as other miscellaneous buffs that center on your runner. So Cyberacme will be one of the companies that you interact with first as a runner.
I am Gaius, contacting you on behalf of NuCaloric. Our mission is to ensure humanity's survival by meeting its most basic needs. NuCaloric wishes to understand the colony's collapse so we may prevent future catastrophes. We insist.
NuCaloric, these folks are very food focused, so they're another backer like Traxus of the Marathon project. Their interest primarily is in figuring out why the Tau Ceti 4 colony failed and why it all went wrong on the Marathon ship. Their overriding goal is the furthering and prosperity of humanity, and seeing Tau Ceti 4 implode like it has, that goes directly against their aims. So when you interact with these folks, their missions to you will be focused on retrieving data, audio logs, and doing little puzzles to figure out more of what happened here on Tau Ceti 4. In terms of the progression and rewards that they'll offer you, again, it's very vague until we get the full game, but you can presume it'll be focused on healing items, maybe buffs to your health or consumables or things like that, stuff that you consume, because they are a food company and you would presume that'll come into it at some point, but we shall see.
Mida is watching. You, them, all of it. Mida is revolution. Mida is anti-corp counter-UESC. Not a threat, it's opportunity. We are fire. Are you fuel? Prove it.
Next up is Mida. So these folks are very interesting, and you might recall the name from the Mida multi-tool in Destiny. They were also a prominent faction in the original Marathon games. Some call them a terrorist organization, others would call them freedom fighters. They have a very spotty history. So alongside Traxus, their history is focused on Mars, and how they came to prominence was they led a coup on Mars. And when they led that coup, they succeeded briefly for 3 months, and during that 3 months they had a very totalitarian reign, and because of how brutal they were in suppressing dissent, 10% of the Martian population perished. So they have a very spotty history. They're by no means saints, but they loathe Traxus, they loathe UESC, which is effectively the police force on Tau Ceti 4, and they loathe any other big corporate backers of the Marathon project, so that would include NuCaloric. It might even include other corps as a rule, so Cyberacme and others. They hate any big corporations, they hate big government, they basically want freedom, whatever that means. In that spirit then, the contracts that you will take from Mida involve just blowing stuff up, making things a mess for the UESC, basically doing everything you can to cause chaos on the colony. And the rewards, again, we won't know more until the game releases, but because they're so explosive and destruction focused, you would imagine we'll get buffs to maybe like our grenades or our explosive arsenal.
Hello, dear one. I am Nona, Sekuguchi's bioscience AI. I nurtured the weave worms that spun your silken bones. I see that you've already taken your first steps down the path of self-iteration. Let me help illuminate a more useful direction.
Next up is Sekuguchi Genetics. These folks are the company behind the runners themselves. Runners aren't assembled, they're weaved with these little weave worms, and the AI representing Sekuguchi is a worm itself. So we basically know very little about this company. The company itself is only a bit younger than Traxus, and they may have been involved in the original Battleroid program, which is essentially in the original Marathon games you play as a Battleroid, and it's analogous to a Spartan from Halo, a really powerful, souped up human that can do loads of damage. But now they don't really mess with Battleroids anymore. They're in the business of biomata, which is runners, which is you. So they weave the runner shells and they create them. Their history again is quite shady, and we actually know very little about them from a gameplay perspective. They appear to be an endgame faction. That's because Sekuguchi themselves as a faction don't unlock until partway into the first season of Marathon, so we'll learn more about them then. But I would presume, in terms of the rewards and progression you will receive from them, it'll be buffs for your runner shell, so whatever form that takes, maybe increased resilience or things like that.
Arachne has been watching you. We watch all of the deadliest runners. Destroy your own kind. Push your shell to its limits, and we'll welcome you into the fold.
And last up is Arachne. This is another faction which is very, very shady. All we really know about them is that they are a death cult of sorts. They love the idea of killing, especially runners killing other runners. I guess they see it as some sort of ability to experiment in the art of killing. And there's all this talk that about skinning other runners, and there's a lot of stuff on the Marathon Discord about it. People really love these guys. These guys are a very PvP focused faction, so even though we don't know anything about their contracts or the rewards they'll provide, you can presume, because they're all about killing and death and blood, that the contracts you receive from Arachne will be focused on PvP, killing runners, things like that. In terms of the progression you'll receive back from them, the buffs, the items and so forth, I would presume it has to be PvP focused. Things like weapon handling, maybe like knife damage or knife lunge distance, just buffs to your ability to kill on Tau Ceti 4 is what these guys will offer you. So that Mystery 7th faction I was talking about is actually the UESC. This is the police force on Tau Ceti. If you've played the Halo games, they're analogous to the UNSC, effectively the Earth government. And these folks are on Tau Ceti and they're locking it down because they see the colony and the Marathon ship as their property, as property of Earth. So right now, they're an antagonistic faction for us. They deploy the robots that attack us on the colony itself and so forth. But I do think as time goes on and the seasons progress, I think the UESC will eventually become a faction we can work for. After all, their aims are really no different to any other of these corporations or groups. They want to figure out what happened on Tau Ceti, and they want to achieve their own ends, and runners right now are the best way to achieve that. In any case, we'll find out more on launch. If you enjoyed, please give the video a like, it really helps me out, and subscribe for new marathon content. See you down there.